know you gotta pack up your tent and ride. Pack up your tent and ride. Good grub cooking on a fire tonight. Pack up your tent and ride.
Hi, I'm Fraser Douglas, and I was an avid tent camper for over 55 years. During those 55 years, Ava and I had the opportunity to try out a lot of camping gear and find those things that made our camping trips very comfortable and those things that did not seem to work very well. In general, the things that worked well were things that were recommended by other camping authorities and generally used by other campers. But occasionally we found things that made our camping trip very comfortable that no other authorities were recommending and generally other campers were not using. And so I've compiled a list of 12 of those things that I call uncommon camping recommendations, gear recommendations that I want to present in this video. I hope that you will find some of these will help you have more comfortable camping trips in the future. My first tip is to buy a good quality 6-person tent from a reputable tent maker such as Marmot, REI, Big Agnes, Kodiak, or Eureka. If you buy a good quality tent, you won't have to seal the seams or cover it with a tarp, and it'll still provide very dry and comfortable protection for well over 20 years if you just keep it clean and dry. If you accidentally damage one of these tents, they have a good customer service department that will give you good advice or sell you replacement parts or perhaps even repair your tent for very reasonable cost. The reason I listed this tip as number 1 is because approximately 3 out of every 4 tent camping families buy cheap tents sold by discount department stores or sporting goods stores, and these tents will frequently leak soon after they're purchased, and their poles can easily bend or break in cold weather or strong winds, and their fabrics can tear in strong wind. And I specifically recommended a 6-person tent because this size will fit in almost any campsite, but larger 8, 10, and 12-person tents may not fit in many campsites. If you have a large family, buy a second tent rather than a larger tent. My second tip is to buy 2 synthetic-filled rectangular sleeping bags that can be zipped together to make a large quilt. My reason for recommending rectangular sleeping bags is because most families only camp in mild summer weather and would never need a mummy bag. And so most campers would only need a blanket or a quilt on cool nights. And if your family likes to put their beds close together, a large quilt is much more comfortable than individual sleeping bags. But outdoor outfitting stores typically display many mummy bags and very few rectangular bags. And their clerks generally strongly recommend mummy sleeping bags rather than rectangular bags. And the reason for recommending synthetic fill bags is that they will keep you warmer when they get wet and dry faster than down or cotton-filled bags. And they will get wet on some camping trips. My third tip is to buy 10-inch nail-type stakes. Although you rarely see this tip in the camping literature, it's very important because the little stainless steel or aluminum stakes that typically come with a new tent are only meant to be used in soft ground. And you should push them in with your hand and not try to hit them in with a hammer. But many campgrounds now are laying down hard-packed gravel to support heavy RVs, and those little stainless steel or aluminum stakes cannot be pushed or hammered through this gravel. And these nail steaks are the only steaks that I know of that can be used on both hard packed gravel and soft ground. You can buy packs of these nail steaks in most discount department stores and sporting goods stores for about $1.50 a piece. Pack 10 of these steaks in your tool bag and you'll always have enough to set up any tent that you may buy. And don't be tempted to buy these plastic steaks. They're only designed for sand or muddy ground. But if you're using a small backpacking tent, you could use these smaller 6-inch nails sold in most home improvement stores. My fourth tip is to add a S-Wing Camper Sacks 14 to your tool bag. The primary use of this axe will be to drive in those tent and tarp stakes around your campsite. And since the head is hardened and has a flat side, you can use the flat side to easily drive in those stakes. A second use for this axe is to split large pieces of firewood into smaller pieces of stove wood and kindling. Now, this is not the best axe for splitting firewood, but it does do the job, and it fits easily into most tool bags. My fifth tip is to add a small pair of channel lock pliers to your tool bag. The primary use of these pliers will be to pull those tent and tarp stakes out of the ground when you're ready to break camp. Sometimes they'll get stuck in a tree root and they'll be especially difficult to remove, but the pliers will usually get them every time. A second use for these pliers is to handle hot pots or anything else that has gotten hot from being around the fire. Oh, that looks good. My sixth tip is to buy about 100 feet of 3mm nylon utility cord rather than 425 or 550 paracord. The reason for recommending the nylon utility cord is because it is a static cord. In other words, once you pull it tight and tie it off, it will stay tight. Whereas paracord is a dynamic cord. When you pull it tight and tie it off, it can still stretch. The reason I make this recommendation is because almost every camping book I have ever read or article recommends paracord rather than the static utility cord. After you buy this cord, cut it into 5 and 10-foot lengths and then tie a permanent overhand loop at one end of each cord length. Now you have short lengths for each camp application, but if you need a longer cord, you can easily join them with a sheet bend knot. My seventh tip is, if you like to have frequent campfires, then buy or make a couple of wedges for safely splitting firewood. These are plastic felling wedges which you can buy from Amazon or from any forestry supply store for less than $5 each. Or you can make a couple of wooden wedges from a couple of pieces of firewood with your axe. When you encounter a piece of firewood that's difficult to split, just stick a wedge into the crack and pound it through with another piece of firewood. This is much safer than swinging your axe several times to split it. My eighth tip is to add a vintage cast iron skillet to your camping kit. A cast iron skillet will allow you to fry and cook a wide variety of great tasting foods to perfection on your camp stove or on the campfire. If you buy a vintage skillet, such as an old Gatemark, a Wagner, a Griswold, or some other brand, you get a much lighter skillet with a very smooth cooking surface that has a much higher quality than the cast iron skillets that are sold today. You can find a good quality vintage skillet on eBay and in many antique shops near your home. My ninth tip is to buy steel cook pots that nest together. The reason for including this tip is because camping outfitting stores offer many different aluminum and titanium cook sets that nest together, but very few, if any, steel cook sets that nest together. Despite the fact that steel cook pots have several advantages over aluminum and titanium cook pots. For example, steel cook pots are better suited for slow cooking and simmering foods such as beans, rice, soups, and stews, while aluminum and titanium pots are more likely to scorch your food. Furthermore, steel cook pots are more durable and are believed to have fewer health risks. So here is our current cook pot set. Our 1-quart pot nests inside of a 2-quart stainless steel Pathfinder pot, and the Pathfinder pot nests inside of a 3-quart GSI enamel steel pot, and the GSI pot nests inside of a 4-quart Imusa enamel pot. And this 4-quart Imusa pot nests inside of our 5-quart Dutch oven. Perhaps the best stainless steel cook pot is this zebra bush pot that's available in 4 different sizes. But unfortunately, these sizes do not nest together well, nor do they nest together well with other cook pots. So we don't pack one in our kitchen kit. But I wanted to mention it because it's a very popular cook pot in the bushcraft community, but it is not sold in most camping outfitting stores, and so most family tent campers have never heard of it before. My 10th camping tip is to add a mid-sized general-purpose food prep knife with about a 5-inch blade to your camp kitchen set. Since I've previously posted several videos about this topic, I won't add any more details here, but I encourage you to watch those other videos. My 11th tip is to buy a flat-bottom Dutch oven with no legs that can be used to cook over the campfire or on your camp stove or even on your home stove. The reason I included this tip is because most camping authorities recommend a Dutch oven with legs, despite the fact that the 1.5-inch legs are too short to cook over a campfire. And so with or without legs, you still need a trivet to raise the bottom of the camp oven to a practical height. Ideally, the flat-bottom Dutch oven should also have a flat lid for baking. But if it doesn't have a flat lid, you can use a cake ring to hold the hot coals on top of a domed lid. My 12th and final uncommon camping gear tip is to buy a Nogent Super Kim can opener. This is a great little can opener that packs into a small space and costs only about $30. More notably, it folds the sharp edges inside the can down so that the can be used for a variety of kitchen purposes, such as holding grease, holding measured ingredients that you need for a chosen recipe, cutting biscuits, and holding your silverware. I wanted to include this tip because I have never seen this can opener recommended in any camping literature, and I don't know of anyone that has ever heard of it before. And that concludes my list of uncommon family tent camping gear recommendations. I hope that you found one or two that will help you have more comfortable camping trips in the future.
Take more trips, travel further, visit more attractions, and spend less money. Go tent camping. Thanks for watching.